Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day to day lives. Let's start with the video. Recently, we moved to Utah, and my wife had spent most of her time trying to socialize with her work friends. For me, it's very hard to approach people in a new town, and thankfully, my wife did all the hard work in finding us new friends. In the past few months, she invited one particular colleague of hers to our home for dinner, and through countless get togethers, my wife and I have become very close with her friend's family. I'm going to call her friend Briana here. So, in the first few weeks when I met Brianna and her husband, we instantly hit it off. Our vibes just matched, and I was happy to have people we could relax with. It got to a point where Brianna would come over to our house unannounced and would stay even if my wife was not at home or was running late from work. Brianna's husband and I would also go out for drinks and would crash at each other's place if we're too hammered. So that's how our life became all about our two families and work with no children to take care of. But recently, something strange started happening. My wife would ask me weird questions out of the blue and would look at me suspiciously. I asked her what was wrong, and she'd always say that it's nothing I should worry about. But then I would just be walking around the house or go downstairs to get some water, and I'd catch my wife and Brianna talking about something, but as soon as they'd see me coming, they would go silent or change the topic. It was clear that they were trying to hide something. And then I started to sneak up on them whenever I could. And once I caught Brianna saying that she saw me at a convenience store all the way across town last Wednesday when she was visiting a property with a client. She couldn't approach me because she was showing her client around the neighborhood, but was wondering why I'd go so far just to shop. Hearing that, I was even more confused. So I did think that they were talking about me, but why would they talk about me regarding things that aren't even true? What the heck was happening? I was too lazy to go to the convenience store in our own neighborhood. Why would I ever drive all the way across town? That didn't make any sense to me. But before I could ask them anything or interrupt, her husband came and I let go of it, thinking maybe Brianna must have confused me with someone else. But the next day, my wife asked me if I was having business trips outside of the office. I didn't connect the dots instantly and told her no. But suddenly, all her weird questions about me taking days off from work and whether or not I was looking into other properties made sense. I mean, obviously, Brianna must have said something for my wife to go as far as to ask me if I was unhappy in our marriage, because it looked that way to her. I didn't think much of it at that time, but now I couldn't just ignore the growing suspicion inside me. So I told my wife what I heard the night before and asked her if they've been talking about me a lot. Once she confirmed that many things she asked me were because Brianna had said something, I got her to sit down and explain to her how it was all a lie, and she needs to stop trusting Brianna. It took a lot to convince her that her new friend was a liar, and I'm not hiding anything, but eventually things worked out. But I was hell bent on taking revenge on Brianna because of how she made things so much worse for me. I spent the next few weeks trying to gather dirt on Brianna, but nothing of much use was coming up. Most of our mutual friends that I've met through my wife had nothing on her. But I kept trying until I got to talking to this doctor friend of Brianna that I've met a few times. Of course, my social anxiety didn't let me get close to any of those people, but my wife was more than enough to make up for my awkwardness, and these people considered me as one of their own because of her. I asked him how he was doing, and we got down to chatting. It was hard to bring up Brianna in our conversation, so I started talking about how we should go out, and maybe my wife could invite Brianna and her husband too, since we're all such good friends. That's when the doctor asked me if I've seen Brianna recently. I told him I did about a week ago, and he asked how she was doing. I didn't know what he was talking about, so I pretended to know and said that she's doing a little better. He told me that she hasn't been picking up her calls and didn't come in for her usual checkup. He said maybe I could let her know to not avoid him and get the checkup because it's really dangerous if not taken care of post abortion. That's when I put two and two together and figured out what he was talking about. I told him, of course, I'd remind her. He thanked me and said he knew I'd know about her condition since my wife is such good friends with her. Then we hung up. I finally found the dirt I was looking for. I was talking about how good it'd be to have my own kids to send to school with Brianna's husband not so long ago when we were both discussing the new school for kids that was being built in our town. I said something about how the neighborhood was a good place to raise a family, and he told me they'd been trying. What struck me as odd was if they were trying, then why did she get an abortion? I figured there must be something she's hiding. That same week, I met with her husband and told him everything. I brought it up casually, saying how the doctor I talked to asked me to remind her to go in for a checkup and stop avoiding his calls. I asked him to let her know from my side, but he said he had no idea what I was talking about. So I told him everything. The next day, Brianna came over and started screaming at me. From the looks of her face, she must have been crying all night. I told her that this wouldn't have happened if she had simply minded her own marriage instead of spouting lies in mine. She left my house crying after cussing me out thoroughly. When she had left, my wife turned on me and started saying how I could do this. I told her that it was deserved because her lies caused me a lot of relationship problems too. But my wife just got more angry and told me how I went too far this time. She hadn't talked to me all day. AITA here for taking my revenge on her? Was I really going too far? I mean, I told the truth, and it's not like the husband didn't have a right to know. About a week has gone by since I posted about the revenge I took on Brianna. My wife didn't talk to me for 3 whole days. I didn't know what was so wrong in going a little overboard. At least because of me doing all that search, I found out how Brianna betrayed her husband. It should have been a decision that both of them should know about, but she just got an abortion without telling him. And that's after he told me that they've been trying. If she didn't want a kid, why did she even tell him that she's willing to try? But my wife would hear nothing I had to say and kept giving me the silent treatment. I have been enjoying this silent treatment for a while, and I don't think I could take it anymore. I'm just going to apologize to her so we can put this matter behind us. After all, it's not like it had anything to do with our family. I'm sure Brianna and her husband can sort it out themselves. We don't need to destroy our happiness over it. I finally apologized to my wife, and she wasn't having it at all. She said she knows that I don't even realize the damage I've caused. She told me that Brianna was just making up a few lies about me, and it was nothing we were going to fight over that much, since she trusts me not to betray her. But what I did was a shit move, considering how I wasn't even harmed that much from her lies. She told me about how Brianna was struggling with talking to her husband about trying to have kids because she's been putting it off for a long time now. And he told her that either they decide to have a family or they go their separate ways because he had been ready for a long time, but she didn't want to give up on her career just yet. But his threat of leaving was too much for her, and she finally gave in. When she found out she was pregnant, she was too scared. She knew she wasn't ready to have a kid and didn't want to bring someone into this world and resent the person for the rest of her life. That's why she aborted it and didn't tell him. And I went ahead and destroyed her whole life. Granted, the husband had a right to know, but it should have been Brianna who should have told him, not me. She said instead of going directly to the husband, I should have talked to Brianna first. Then she walked out and left for work. Hearing her tell me all these things made me feel really guilty. For the first time, I was regretting what I did. But I have no idea what I should do now. How can I even fix the mess I've made? Yesterday, I talked to Brianna's husband and found out that he has been living with his family instead of Brianna. I felt really bad about being the reason for breaking them up and apologized to him. But all he said was that I just helped the inevitable happen sooner. With the way both he and Brianna were in different places in their life, it was eventually not going to work out, so I shouldn't really feel sorry for telling the truth. I tried apologizing to Brianna too, but she wouldn't hear a word I have to say. All she does these days is go out with my wife and drink. Thankfully, though, my wife had finally forgiven me. She had stopped with the silent treatment for now, but there's still some stress between us. I just hope with time it passes and we could go back to being the happy couple. YTA, granted, what she did was bad and was a major red flag in the friendship, but your wife should have been the one to shut her up. What you did was so messed up that calling you an a-hole wouldn't be enough. Even if the husband had the right to know about his wife's abortion, you should have given Brianna a chance to tell the truth. You are the cause of destroying a relationship. YTA, how can you even compare a few lies with something that big? Yes, Brianna was a Karen that couldn't keep her nose away from other people's business, but you are the biggest a-hole here. My husband lives in his office. He's in there more than any other thing around the house. My husband likes arts and crafts and ultimately DIY things, but the issue is he does messy things with the kids, and I'm always the one to clean up the stains. For example, my husband likes painting. The kids like painting too. So instead of doing these outside or any messy things, he does the most messy things and doesn't clean it. But the worst things about this is he does this all in the places I stay in the most on the house. For example, the kitchen. I own a bakery down the street. I bake lots of cakes before I use anything in the bakery. I don't like baking cakes with gross paint stains all over my counter, kitchen walls, etc., because he leaves it and I won't be able to get it out. I spend hours in that kitchen and I would like for it to be treated like so. I've had at least 10 talks with him about this. I've explained. I've given him multiple different ideas to still do what he wants to do in different places. Just stay out of my area. I would be fine if he actually made an effort to clean it, but he doesn't. Every time the conversation is like me talking to a wall. He'll say, okay, I won't do it again. By next week, I'm trying to get more stains out of the table, cabinets, backboards, etc. My last straw was me sitting him down for the 11th time and him saying that I was being dramatic and a kitchen is a normal place to do arts and crafts and it's like I don't want our kids to have fun. Why can't he just respect where I spend so much time? I've never let the kids go in and mess up his space, draw on his desk. Hell, I don't even let them use his computer for games or anything. So I have this white film that mimics his office wall that I will put on before and had extras. I used it while he was at work. I put it up on his wall so that the other one didn't actually get dirty, and it checked out. I can admit that this wasn't the most mature thing to do, but honestly, I went the mature route 11 times. The wall was written on and pretty much looked just like the back of my kitchen walls, table, etc. He came home and he was pissed and came to yell at me at what the hell we did to his office. I played innocent and said that we were just doing some arts and crafts. He was pissed and went on a rant about how important his office is. That's his job. He can't have little kid marks all over the place. He said that I was an immature a-hole for doing what I did, and now he's going to have to pay to get it fixed. I walked into his office and took down the paper I had in place, showing his clean wall. I told him that he didn't like having his stuff disrespected, so don't do it to mine. He's now doing it outside but hasn't even looked my way since. I told my mom and she agreed with him, saying it was innocent and cute for them to share these moments together. Nope. NTA, you didn't damage his space like he did yours. You just proved your point, and now he's pissed because you're right. It sucks to have your space and work disrespected. Also, who does not clean up after themselves? NTA, you provided an object lesson in a way that did not create any actual damage. Cleaning up is part of any activity, and he should have been taught about that in childhood. If he wants to do something fun with the kids, it's his responsibility to return the space to its prior state. Tell your mother that next time she can invite them over to use her living room and see how much she likes it. He needs to put his big boy pants on and learn to be an adult. All he's doing is teaching your kids that they can be messy and destructive with no repercussions. My best friend and I have known each other since we were like 3, and we have always been super close. She's the first of us to get married, and I'm so happy for her and was so happy to be asked to be her maid of honor. What she and I were not expecting was for her fiancé to consider my ex such a close friend now that he's his groomsman. We knew they kept in touch after I broke up with him, but we had no idea they were friends. What's even worse is my ex is using this as a way to try and force his way back into my life. She gave me warning when she found out, and I agreed to one night out with all six of us, my best friend, her fiance, and their bridesmaids' groomsmen. I was paired with her fiance's brother, who is the best man, and my ex was with her sister, who is a bridesmaid. But he would not stick around her sister at all. He kept coming over to me. He tried to get me to take him back. He joked that we should go and hook up. He touched me a few times, and I had to brush him off. He was just intense. Our breakup happened a little over 2 years ago. We were together for 5 years, lived together, talked about marriage and babies, and then I heard him mock me to his friends and say disgusting things like I was so boring as a person, but at least my body was good, so he could drown out the rest of me and just focus on my looks. He mocked me for being sensitive. He also mocked the fact I had low self-esteem from my childhood relating to my family, and he told them details only he and my best friend knew. My best friend asked her fiance if there wasn't anyone else. He told her the two of them got so much closer in the last 2 years, and he truly considers him his closest friend now, so no. He said we should be able to deal with being around each other for a few hours. She asked if there was anything she could do to make it easier, but I just can't be around him like that. I can't have him following me around and trying to win me back. He humiliated me. He said things that I never would have expected out of him. 5 years of my life, he got to treat me like that. We agreed that I should pull out of the wedding. My best friend is so upset, and she's upset with her fiance. He's now angry with me, and he told me I should have sucked it up for my best friend and followed through on being her maid of honor because it meant so much to her. He told me I was being petty and I should be able to ignore my ex for the sake of my best friend. I do feel bad. I hate doing this, but I know I would feel like I am trapped in hell if I have to deal with my ex throughout the wedding. There is no doubt in my mind I would be miserable. She knows this too, which is why we agreed. But I hate doing this to her. I always dreamed of being in her wedding, and now? AITA? NTA, the groom, is the one prioritizing his friend over the happiness of his bride, and he is trying to get you to suck it up. He could have had a chat with your ex and told him his behavior was unacceptable, and if he tried to get close to you, he would be dropped. But he preferred pressuring you so he could have what he wanted. I tell your friend that her fiance is trying to pressure you, as that would be a red flag to me. NTA, but her fiance is. Have you told your friend that he has tried to touch you and the inappropriate things your ex has said? Your friend's fiance should be speaking to his dear friend about why this isn't appropriate behavior. You shouldn't have to suck up being around someone who is making you uncomfortable. It sounds like your friend is marrying a real jerk if he thinks you should have to put up with that. If your friend were put in that position with an ex, would he be happy knowing that they were touching her and trying to get back together and following her around? NTA, the groom is the one being petty. Why isn't he putting his fiancée over his new good friend? You've literally known each other for your entire lives. He's the a-hole in this situation.